And now it's down to the Europa League. Welcome to the latest edition of Daily Gooner Pod here on Sports Talk Line Network. Normal crew's back with you, joining you from the United States. I'm Raphael, joining you from London this evening. To my immediate left, my English cohorts, Ryan. Welcome back, Ryan.
Hello, Raf. Hope you're doing well.
I'm well. And then, of course, below Ryan is Sam. Welcome back, Sam. Good to have you back, both back.
Always good to be back, mate. Rather depressing times, but we're here.
All right. Well, we're going to try to put a happier face on it because there still is a ray of hope for Arsenal, even after that dismal display this weekend. And we're going to begin there with the match against Liverpool. Club comes back from international break, quite battered. Many players not available for the match. I think a lot of us were thinking that this was possible springboard to a run-in. That run-in still looks much more comfortable, but this was the key, I think. Ryan, I'll start with you. I think we were hoping that they could take 3 points here, pull themselves at least into Europa competition, and what we saw was just a lot of fizzle.
Yeah, we barely laid a glove on Liverpool at all. There was no enthusiasm, no determination, there was just a lack of everything, a lack of quality on the ball, lack of desire. It was very soft. The performance was very soft, and we literally let Liverpool do whatever they wanted. They came and camped up for the day and had a great day out in London.
Sam, where do you put this? How much of this do you put to, again, the lack of key players? Xhaka was out, Emile Smith-Rowe was out, Bukayo Saka was out, and then Kieran Tierney goes out right before the half with a knee injury. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the program. But how much of that was just to either lack of depth? We talk about this. This is not a deep squad.
No, it's really isn't a deep squad. And to be honest with you, the players coming in, we've known about these for a very, very long time. They're not up to the standard that we need to compete at a high level. And unfortunately, the players that come in are backups and not much more else. In terms of the actual performance, you can see quite evidently in that game we missed the connectors within our squad. So I just feel,
who are they? Let's put our finger on them. Who are they? Who was missing? Who was vital to the cause?
Xhaka's vital because he can dictate the play in the centre of the park. He gives it a bit of calmness. If people try to get play out from the back, then 9 times out of 10 it goes into Xhaka and then Xhaka forwards because he's a really progressive passer. You miss David Luiz at the back because if we haven't got that option of going into Xhaka or Partey, then he'll go longer, but long and wide into the wings. In that forward area, Pepe should really be a connector, but me and Ryan have had a discussion about this today. For me, I don't feel that Pepe is the type of winger that can work in an Arteta system because Arteta wants us to play possession football, but Pepe's more of a counter-attacking player. But if you look at the way that we play when Saka's on the pitch, he's the one that connects the midfield and forward, going forward. And on the other side, Smith-Rowe again is another connector, and they all work and interchange with Ødegaard. And if you notice with our performance, we just wasn't finding him. We wasn't finding anyone basically. We was bereft of ideas. We play it around at the back and just hoof it long. It is lack of basics.
And if you think to the match prior, West Ham, where they were so in those last 60 minutes, so potent in the attack, Ryan, we saw people like Smith-Rowe, we saw Saka on the right, Odegaard central. There was a lot of movement, as you said. Xhaka and Partey in the midfield. Very disappointing in this match that a lot of the bigger names that we'd hoped for did not come through. I think people pointed to Danny Ceballos, and that's not a surprise. I mean, I think it's becoming clearer and clearer by the match that he's not going to be brought back for his Real Madrid loan. But people like Aubameyang, I think, were real head scratchers.
Yeah, I said it in a group chat of ours. Danny Ceballos couldn't run a bath, let alone a midfield. So it really did show how important a player like Granit Xhaka is to the system we're playing at the moment, because he just controls the midfield. He controls the tempo of how we play. He hits the ball to our attacking players. He gets the ball up quicker than what Ceballos does. Ceballos takes 9 touches before he makes a pass. I call him the Spanish fidget spinner, because he goes round and round in circles until he makes a pass. And it's just not quick enough. And it really, with Liverpool, they were pressing us so quickly, we had no time to get out. And there was no connector on the right, because Pepe wasn't coming inside like Saka would. We didn't have anyone on the left coming inside like Smith Rowe would. And we left Odegaard isolated against the best central defensive midfielder in the league. And that shouldn't have happened. And I understand what Arteta wanted. He wanted Aubameyang in behind Trent. But what actually happened was we didn't control the midfield, and Aubameyang is tracking Trent Alexander back the other way instead of giving him defensive problems. And that's where it went wrong. We lost the midfield battle, and we just deteriorated throughout the game.
There's a little disappointing, Sam, to see kind of the responses. And obviously the boss is going to get the blame. The boss is always going to get the blame after results like this, when there's so much hope for this. But obviously, Ceballos got blamed. It's really disappointing to me to see a player like Thomas Partey have abuse heaped on him after this match. I mean, to my eyes, in that first half, when we were under siege, he was the one player who was keeping our back line from being just totally overrun.
Yeah, and for me, I think people have got an unrealistic expectation of Thomas Partey. They expect him to come in, do the dirty work, do the creativity, scoring goals. And it's just like, I'm not being funny. Have you actually watched Thomas Partey play previously at all across any time of his career for Atletico or for Ghana? No, yeah, I think so.
Yes, Ghana.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it's just like, this player is an exceptionally skilled player at holding a midfield. He can go forward and create, but it isn't the primary asset of his skill set. He's been given more license to come forward than what he did at Atletico Madrid. But there's certain situations where he helps, because he will help in the higher press. Now, if the rest of the players around you aren't pressing higher, he's going to look absolutely bang average, because it's not going to be effective. But if you're looking at when we're under siege, he 9 times out of 10 stops a lot of the opposition's attacks single-handedly. And with Liverpool, they've got probably one of the best midfields in Europe. And as Ryan said, they pitched up in our half. So Thomas is getting through a hell of a lot of work. And then next thing I see is people calling him lazy. And you just think, I just don't understand what people are seeing to call him lazy, because he's certainly not. He, towards the end of the games, he gets tired because there's been no pre-season for him, and he's been in and out of injury across the season. So his fitness isn't going to be 100% all the time, and also adapting to the league in the way that he has. I just think people have got unrealistic expectations, and the slander of him, in my opinion, is personally ridiculous.
All right. So if there wasn't any question entering the match there, I think there's no question now, Ryan, it's a 5-match season. Everything hinges on Europa League starting 2 days from now at the Emirates against Slavia Prague, first leg. Some really good news from training today. Granit Xhaka, Emil Smith-Rowe, and Bukayo Saka all back in training. On the flip side, it appears that Kieran Tierney will be missing at least 2 to 3 weeks with a knee injury that he suffered. Thankfully, it's not worse. It doesn't seem to be a very serious one, but enough of one to take him out of this leg. So That raises a serious question. What do you do with the back line? Obviously, David Luiz he's out, and now half of your ideal back four is not available. Start there and bring me forward. You know, we saw Bukayo Saka at left back last year when they had no left backs and things were emergency. Are we at the point now where he's considered there, or is he too important to the attack to keep to move from his right wing?
For me, he's just too important on the right-hand side because he makes everything tick. Him and Smith Rowe with Odegaard interchanging, it just works so well. And we saw that on Saturday, whereas Odegaard and Pepe don't have the same chemistry as Odegaard and Saka. Saka and Odegaard know when to interchange their positions and when one to go wide, one to drop deep. They both know what they're doing in this system. Whereas I don't think if we played Pepe there or Willian, I don't think they would have the same kind of connection with our number 10 as Saka does. And I saw a stat today, in the games that Smith Rowe and Saka have started together, I think we've lost once and won the rest. And the others that they haven't started together, we've won 5 out of 20. And that is a worrying stat that we're pretty much banking on 2 20-year-olds to get us through this season. But as you say, I don't think we can put Saka at left back. I think we're just going to have to ride it with Cedric and just pray that Kieran Tierney's not out for longer than 2-3 weeks.
So on the flip, Ryan, I'm sorry, Sam, if you're going to have Cedric on the left, I guess Callum Chambers has to play on the right.
Yeah, I think so. I think with Chambers, he's been a real asset there. People do say that he does get found out, but not being funny, we all know he'll get found out every so often in the game because of his lack of pace. But his passing range, it can be a real asset in that situation. With Hector Bellerin, I don't believe he's 100% fit, but yeah, for me, I don't really trust him when he's playing at right back because he's always caught too high, too wide. And if you're looking for synergy going up the pitch, Bellerin just kills it. So for me, I think Chambers is probably the more fluent option moving forward. And I think with Chambers, he'll be a benefit in that game because obviously we're going to need a bit of still at the back as well, considering they've knocked out 2 English oppositions, British oppositions already. So it's not going to be an easy game, put it that way.
But sticking with this though, we saw that playing in these matches that Chambers is good going forward. And we talked about this before the break, the international break. There was a question, Ryan, that given everything that's gone on, that it's incumbent on Arsenal to really make this first leg count and build a lead, get some goals. So you're saying stick with that plan, put the best attacking options out there. Also some news today that one of their center backs is out and that they're down to one healthy center back. That seems to add more fuel to this philosophy. Just attack them, try to put them in a hole.
Yeah. And I think if Kieran Tierney is out for a while, I forgot to mention in the last question, but maybe going back to a back 3 might be an option and having Saka at left wing back with Cedric at right wing back. That could be a possibility with Smith Rowe and Odegaard behind Aubameyang. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, they've got one centre back available at the moment. The person that was racist to Glenn Kamara, he's been left at home for health reasons, which is convenient as he was supposed to be speaking to the police over here before the game or after the game, whichever it was. So he's not here. And the other only healthy centre back is also in. One of the other centre backs is also injured, so they have one healthy centre back. So I'm tempted to throw Martinelli through the middle because he has on Saturday, he came on for 16 minutes and he was best player on the pitch for Arsenal, which I think says everything about him as well as what happened to us. If we throw Martinelli through the middle, we can have Aubameyang on the left or whatever. So I think we throw our best attacking options, and I think right now Martinelli is probably our best centre forward.
I think it's worth saying, Sam, I'm going to bring this back to you. I mean, we talked about him a little bit in the first segment, but it really is a question of you don't know what you have until you don't have it. And once again, we saw that, as much as people like to jump on Granit Xhaka and say we need to improve upon him in the summer, he wasn't there. And boy, they're just a different team without him.
Yeah, it's been evident every time Xhaka's been out of the side. We never are able to control the midfield without him in that side, and his passing range actually provides us with a lot of forward avenues. And even if it's something where he's got to go backwards to then go forwards, it's done quickly. But with someone like Ceballos coming in, I don't know what's happened to this Danny Ceballos. Has he got a twin brother or something that can't play football? Because it seems that we've got that guy. But Granit Xhaka is key to this midfield. Can we upgrade him in the summer? Possibly. People are looking towards Basuma, but can Basuma do what Granit Xhaka does? To an extent, not to a full extent, in my opinion. But there's other attributes that Basuma brings. But ultimately, it depends how Arsenal want to be controlling the midfield going forward. But for me, Granit Xhaka needs to be an important in and around the squad.
All right, Ryan. Again, it's a five match season because everything is riding on getting into Champions League in this route. I mean, it's happened. Mourinho did it with United, I think 3 years ago when they finished sixth, and they won Champions League, and he was able to very smugly come in and remember he hit the boom box and he played the Champions League theme when it was all over. And I'd love to see Mikel Arteta have a chance to do that, although I don't think he would because he's not Mourinho. But in that situation, who is your best 11, and what do you do when the Prem comes around? Do you just keep those, say these are my 11 and maybe one or two key substitutions, and I'm just going to keep them in a glass case when we're not playing Europa League football for the rest of the season?
Is that with everybody fit or who we have available now?
Well, it seems okay. David Luiz is out. Kieran Tierney is out. We know that's for at least 2 or 3 weeks, perhaps longer.
Right.
Given who they have, who they know will be available at least for starting with this round this weekend and next weekend with the rematch. Who is your core?
I'm gonna go with Leno. Gonna go with Cedric at right back. Chambers at centre back with Gabriel. I'll go with Saka at left back. Partey, Xhaka, Odegaard, Smith Rowe, Martinelli, and Aubameyang.
Where are you going to put Smith Rowe and Martinelli in that?
Martinelli on the left, Smith Rowe on the right.
Okay. Sam, how do you line them up?
Leno, Chambers, Holding, Gabriel, Cedric, Xhaka and Partey, Odegaard in front, Martinelli on the left, Smith Rowe right, and I would probably say Lacazette up top.
That brings us to the next question. As you said, there's a conundrum with the veteran strikers. Aubameyang's the big name. Aubameyang's got the better history, but certainly for the last month or two, it seems Lacazette's been the better player. They do have some difficulty when they're played together. How do you use them? I said you've got 5 matches to target, and Aubameyang, most distressingly, I think he's gone missing in some of these Europa matches. There have been some of his worst matches have been in the Europa League where he's had massive opportunities that an on form Aubameyang would put away, Sam, and he's missing them here. How Who do you prioritize going forward at the striker position?
Um, I I don't know what's going on with Aubameyang at the moment, but he just seems like an absolute shadow of himself. I think I think personally going forward, if we're gonna be having the youngsters in behind, I think that Lacazette needs to be starting. I don't I don't think that Aubameyang deserves a place in the squad in the starting 11 at the moment. He's he's just not good enough out on the left anymore. And if he doesn't get a goal, he just doesn't affect the game in any which way. Even if it's just runs inside, um, runs behind the defense to try and stretch them. But I think everybody that watches the pod knows that I'm nowhere near Lacazette's biggest fan. But I just feel that he gives us a bit more in terms of build up and layoffs and gets a bit more involved in terms of trying to link the play. And if we need to go into him, we can. But with Aubameyang, if he's up front, the ball sometimes goes into him and just bounces off. And then we were on the back foot again. So I don't think they can and should play together this for the remainder of this season. It's got to be one or the other. But for me right now, it's got to be Lacazette up front.
Ryan, I'm going to give you a crack at that, but I want to add another thing in Lacazette's favor. Again, what I see is that he's just so much better than Aubameyang when they're pressing. I mean, he's really good at getting the ball back and dispossessing, and just his effort and cutting off lanes just seems he's a lot more engaged in that part of Arsenal's play.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And for me, I'm on the same page as Sam. It's one or the other. We need to stop fannying around with Aubameyang on the left because it really doesn't work. If you're playing Aubameyang, he needs to play through the middle. Otherwise, you lose everything that he is, which is a prolific goal scorer. If he's on the left, he's then having to track back. He's having to do defensive work, and that's just not him. He's not gonna fly by 4 or 5 players and whip a ball in for Lacazette. So I think we need to play the wingers as a winger and play Aubameyang as a striker. And for me, I hear what Sam's saying, that Lacazette does bring more to the team holding up wires and whatnot. But for me, when Aubameyang was in the team, before he got dropped at Tottenham, against Tottenham, I know he was missing the chances, but he was still getting in the right positions. He was still in the right spots, and he was getting to form. He was scoring some goals. So I don't play him back in the middle.
What is his role going forward in, what we assume is, as of right now, a 5-match campaign? What's his best role? How can he contribute the most to helping Arsenal get where it wants to go, Sam?
Bench.
Not even as a rotation, as a off the bench.
Depends if we need to stretch a team, but for me, his skill set just doesn't match Arteta's system, and also depending who, a lot of it factors as well as who he's got behind him in the right fullback slot. Because if they don't find him, he's not involved, and we're getting to the point of the season now where, as you say, it's a five match season, and the crux of it is we can't afford any passengers in these games. We need every single man on that pitch to be accountable and to be fully involved. We can't take passengers anymore. So if we need to stretch and the game's really open, then yeah, brilliant for Nicola Pepe to come in, be the rotation there. But if it's not, and if it's tight, I don't think he offers that much, to be honest.
Ryan, that raises a really vital long-term question. He's the club's record signing, biggest signing in club history. Do you bring him back next year if you can't count on him at crunch time with everything on the line, with the future of this club on the line, and you guys are talking about leaving him on the bench. What do you do with him going forward?
Personally, I would look to be potentially recouping some of the money we spent on him, maybe sending him back to France, maybe try to sell him to PSG or someone that could be interested in him. So I think there's wingers out there that's probably more suited to the way Arteta wants to play. Someone like Jadon Sancho. I know that's a long shot, but if we can win the Europa League, then that's someone I would try and look at to replace Nicola Pepe. But going back to the rotation of the team, I'm just going to use a basketball term, or what they do at the moment. During the regular season, they have their full 15 players that they rotate into the starting five and whatnot. But when it comes to the playoff games, they have their 7 rotational players that they consistently play. And I think that's what we need to do with the Europa League. Have your base 11 with your 5 subs that you'd bring on in a game, and keep them away from dirty matches in the Premier League, because when you play against West Brom, when you play against Everton, they're going to kick the living daylights out of your players. So Pepe can play in those sorts of games. Let's keep Saka away from them.
Short rotation, the short bench, I believe is the term. Who is on your short bench then? You don't even have Nico Pepe listed in your short bench for those.
If I'm bringing players on, then it's going to be controversial, but I think Willian offers a little bit more than Pepe does in tight situations. He's so much better on the ball in short space where he's crowded. We see against Benfica, Arteta chose to bring Willian on, and they changed the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Willian, if you've got one of the Chuckle brothers on the pitch at one time, then you bring the other one on. Like, you got Lacazette on the bench, bring him on. You got, if you're trying to short the game up, you bring El Nene or Ceballos. So for me, it depends what the situation is.
Sam, similar question. Who's on your short bench? And is there a toxic bench? I mean, we've seen in the last 2 Europa matches, Dani Ceballos comes on and awful things happen almost immediately. If you're Mikel Arteta, are there 1 or 2 players who you just say, no, everything, there's too much on the line, not in this competition, not this run-in?
Yeah, as harsh as this is gonna sound, I've got to list Eddie and Nketiah on there as well, because even in opportunities where he had with England under 21s, he was terrible. He did not have a good stint with England. Dani Ceballos, I wouldn't even have him on the bench personally myself. If we're talking Premier League games, I'd rather us try Miguel Aziz in some of the games, so he gets a bit of experience in the league. As I say, I wouldn't bother with Eddie. I'd be looking at potentially putting Balogun in there to try and help with the contract situation, to say, look, this is your pathway into the team. These players are going in the summer. This is what you essentially are going to be moving forward. I just want to also quickly touch on, I've seen a lot of people say on Twitter saying, I'll just throw the youth team players in there. So people like Mola, Aziz, Balogun, Joel Lopez, players like that. It's very easy to say, yep, just throw them in. But if they have a torrid 2 games, because it's a big step up from the under-23s. If they have torrid games, we all know what this fan base is like at some points. They will absolutely destroy a player before they have the chance to flourish. But I think if you're going to integrate them, it needs to be around 1 or 2, like a good core of the senior players.
All right, let's move off the club. Let's move off Europa for a moment. Let's cast our eyes to the window. a name. We're talking about lightning rod players, Ceballos, Pepe, people of that nature. Ryan, lightning rod player from last year's club, is making some noise in the Bundesliga. Matteo Guendouzi, a not so distant blast from the past, in a good way. So you put a poll on our Twitter page this morning asking, with his run of form, would you bring him back? I'm going to ask you the question here on the pod. Would you bring him back?
No.
Why not?
There's a player there. He's very talented. I've watched his last 3 or 4 games and he's been really, really good. But he still has no tactical discipline. He still runs around like a headless chicken. And I just don't see where. I know he's better than Elneny. I know he's better than Ceballos. But if we're bringing him back and he doesn't perform again, then his contract runs out at the end of the season. And he's not going to sign a new contract to protect his value, because what player does that? So for me, he has to be sold. His problems outweigh his talent for me. I know Hertha Berlin, their sporting director, said that he's very well behaved here. I'm sure he is. But we know the real Guendouzi. We've seen what he does here on a weekly basis. So for me, it's a no.
Sam, do you sell high with Matteo Guendouzi, or do you give him another chance?
I wouldn't. I'd rather bathe myself in some beans than give him a second chance, to be perfectly honest. But as Ryan said, he's been good in the odd game, but the odd game is too few and far between. Speaking to some Hertha fans, in their opinion, he's been distinctly average across the stint. Just touching on the point of him being well behaved, it's been documented that he's had a fight with his teammate whilst he's there. He fell out with the old coach whilst he's there. So, it's the problems are still there. This is a player where problems are going to follow him. He's not going to change his attitude to try and appease management. It's Guendouzi's way or no way. And frankly, does Guendouzi get into the starting 11 like he's probably going to expect to do? No. So is he going to accept being a rotational bench player? No. He's had a fairly okay-ish stint at Hertha. If they want him, they've taken new ownership within the last couple of years, so they can pay for him.
Okay, I'm going to stick with you, Sam. Lightning rod player, lightning rod topic. The manager. People are okay with him. Seems some people love him. Some people are okay. A lot of people are okay with him. And there are a lot of people who are very quiet when things are going well. And as soon as Arsenal lose a match, they can become very loud and are very vocal. And they pick up a baton and they beat him with it because they wanted him out and have wanted him out. Really, a lot of them didn't want him in. They became very loud this week. At the same time, there are rumors Mikel Arteta is being offered an extension. Is that a good move, in your opinion? Is he getting a fair shake from the fans and from the organization?
From the fans, no. I think a lot of fans want him to fail so they can turn around and say, "I told you so." Is the blunt end of it. I see a lot of people branding the Emery Arteta and Wenger stats after 50 games being bandied about. Fair enough. Them stats may be worse in the initial instance, but also you've got to look at the wider picture because stats only tell half a picture. You've got to talk about injuries. You've then got to talk about the lack of identity at the club when he first took over, the confidence crisis at the club when he first took over, COVID when that hit as well, all the restrictions, players being in and out. Then you're looking at COVID restrictions from international breaks. Then you're also talking about trying to create the identity at the club that Unai Emery essentially stripped out and destroyed. You're still looking at trying to recover players' confidence from that point as well. So, then we factor in to the point he's inherited a very, very unbalanced team and a very mismatched team, because that team hasn't really got any. If you used to sit down and really think about it and say, has this team got a real identity in the players that are there? The answer is no. But ultimately, we know these players are going to make mistakes. We've seen games where we've completely dominated, like Arteta wants us to, and we lose it by a brain fart from players that we know will make mistakes. And people will go, well, it's down to the manager not to play them then. So, okay, so if you don't play them, you're bringing in one of the replacements that we also know is distinctly not good enough. So what do? I'll play the youth then. If the youth doesn't step up to the Premier League level, then what? Then what do you do? So for me, I think people are being unfair and overly harsh, because you can see there's an identity starting to form at the club. You can now see that there's a pattern of play starting to happen at the club. It's just a case of, unfortunately, this season's been shit due to certain situations, but you can see the plan and you can see where he wants to go. So if you used to change him now, you're starting completely from scratch, and you're 5 years further back again. So what? It's one or the other, really, for me.
I'd add to that list, Sam. He inherited a lot of problem children, and Ryan, he inherited a lot of bad contracts, and he's been working very, very hard this year at getting rid of those.
Yeah, and I think, to answer the question that you asked Sam about whether he deserves a contract now, I think he should wait until the summer, until the end of the summer. See what he's done in the summer, who he brought in, who he's got rid of, where we end up finishing. I think this season has been an absolute shambles. I think due to no preseason, we had literally next to no preseason. Our signings came in and they played 2 games together and then they got thrown into the Premier League. So that doesn't help. Then you got all the problem of not registering certain professionals, Socrates, Ozil. They're causing trouble behind the scenes. Not so much Socrates, but they're causing trouble behind the scenes for the manager, trying to start up a divide in the dressing room. The system that we played at the time was very much catered to these players that do make mistakes pretty much every five games. And it wasn't until Arteta went back to a back 4 with a number 10 that we started to see an improvement. And the pattern of play, as Sam said, the pattern of play, passing style, our pressing game. And I think with Arteta, he's gone through a lot. I think the club has gone through a lot in the last 4 years. The instability off the field. We've gone from having Wenger, Gazidis and Dick Law to Sven, Mislintat, Raul, Vinay, Emery, and then we've gone to Vinay, Edu, and Arteta within 4 years. We have had no stability, and that really does affect the squad building. So we've had 3 different managers, 3 different squad building, with 3 different directors of football. And this is the mess it leaves. It has so many knots in the lace that Arteta is trying to undo one by one. He's got rid of the bad contracts. He's getting rid of the bad players. He's getting rid of the bad eggs in the dressing room. Once they've all gone, which will be most likely this summer, he can then start building his team with his tools and his system and players that suit the system. I was saying the update, I think he's only made 1 bad signing, and that's Runnison. And if that is the ratio he's going for with bad signings, I'll take that. If we can sign Odegaard on a permanent deal, that's one problem solved with a number 10. And people say, "Oh, we had a number 10, but he weren't good enough. He didn't do what Odegaard does. Odegaard does all of the defensive work as well." So I think for me, Arteta is doing a good job. Obviously the table doesn't say he's doing a good job, but I think we're in a false position. There's certain games where decisions have gone against us, mistakes have gone against us, and you take those away, and we'd be considerably higher up the pitch, up the table. Sorry.
All right, so I'm going to give you the final word on that one, gentlemen. Big match, 2 days from now. Sam, what do you look for? Give me a prediction.
What I'm looking for is for us to have a reaction from the Liverpool game and to really take this team to Slavia Prague. We really need to kill it in the first leg, personally. Not give them any hope whatsoever. So I'm looking for a big scoreline. I'd probably say 3-4-0.
Okay, Ryan. This is huge for all reasons, internally especially. Is this club? It's strange. It's ironic that the bigger the game, the younger it seems we relied. You were pointing that out at the beginning. What do you look for from the kids on Thursday? He has to play the kids.
I just want them to connect the jigsaw, make the team work again, make the puzzle fit, and I think we'll be fine. And once Aubameyang's through the middle again, I think certain players have heard the criticism this week, and I think they're going to try and put that right.
All right. I'm gonna. Do you have a score line?
4-0.
Okay, I'm going to say 3-0. I mean, I harken back. This, as we said, Liverpool was nauseating, but I go back to Lacazette's line after the West Ham game where he came out and he said, "We didn't respect the manager's plan," and I have to think that there is a core in that locker room, in that dressing room, who's bought in and will respect the plan, and I'm sure they'll have a plan on Thursday. So again, with like you two, I'm looking for a really positive turnaround, a positive result. All right, we want to thank all of you out in the internet world here on YouTube for joining us on our live evening pods. You can find us on Twitter on @Daily Gooner Pod. And you can see on their names. You can find Ryan at Daily Gooner Ryan. Find Sam at Daily Gooner Sam on Twitter. You can find me at Cowboys Nation 1. Again, we bid you a good evening, and we will see you again very soon.